So I'm going to speak on integrating dualism and non-dualism, and how to kind of experience both of them at the same time. So to start with, dualism is the idea that there is a self and then a separate reality. So it's generally what most people live in. It's the experience of things and of other beings and the separate self, basically, seen through the eyes of the ego. And then non-dualism is the idea that everything is one consciousness, all experiencing itself, and that there are really no separate forms. In reality, it's all just projection from one consciousness of God, or of the one. So both of these are truths, and they are true in their own right simultaneously. But the ultimate reality, or the ultimate truth, is that everything is one, and that everything is one infinite consciousness experiencing itself. But from our experience, it seems as though we're separate beings experiencing ourselves individually. And even on a soul level, the soul is still an individual portion of that infinite consciousness. So there's truth to that too. So to integrate these two perspectives, you basically well, for one, for me, I wasn't able to integrate non-dualism until I had an experience of non-dualism. And the way it came about for me initially was that I had an experience of literally seeing everybody around me as being myself projected outward. So I would talk to people and it would feel as though it wasn't another person speaking to me. It was literally myself speaking through another form to myself. And it was such a deep experience that for a long time I was having full-on integrative experiences with everything, meaning I would feel as though whenever I came into the contact of another person, that I understood their entire life as if I had lived it, because I could feel intuitively that they were one with me. So their mind melded into my mind, and I started seeing everything from all perspectives at the same time. And for me, initially it was very overwhelming, because I had never had that experience before, first off, and secondly, I had never even been able to conceptualize of anything like that. I hadn't even heard any teachings about non-duality or anything like that. I just had the experience, and then I started freaking out because I thought that I was going insane, and I thought that my reality was breaking down. I thought I had died, which I had died in a sense. My ego had died, but in reality I was just seeing from a new lens. And so anyways, what I learned from all this stuff was that integrating duality and non-duality is an important part of the movement towards enlightenment, or towards understanding of your true self, because in truth you are connected to everything and everybody. And from what I've experienced, the truth of it is that everybody is kind of like a reflection of you in a way, and they're all a reflection of your consciousness. They're all showing you different aspects of yourself, and they're all being just a bunch of different yous in different bodies. And that's kind of like how I came to find a feeling of I guess what's the word for that, compassion for other people, because I started to see that everybody else was just me living their life, if that makes any sense. So this is the integration. It's like, it's hard to describe all this stuff because it's so unconceptual. Like, it's like you gotta have this understanding that literally you are this infinite being, and that you're creating this entire experience, and that everything in your experience is for you to experience because it's your life. And even though on one level, see, even on this, it could get confused, because at that point you would start to think that everybody else is not even real, and that the only real thing was yourself. And in one sense, that's kind of true, but not really, because everybody else is experiencing their own life, and everybody else is having an experience, and there are other souls, and there is a duality in that sense. But those people are also part of that infinity too. So eventually it all comes back into one, and it really is just dependent on the level of perspective. Because there's also a thing where when you get even further into it, you start to realize that our human perspectives are so limited that we don't understand that something could be individualized and multiple at the same time, because we see from a linear perspective. So we can't really conceptualize the fact that something could be an individualized portion of infinity and an infinite portion of infinity. Like not only is it a portion, it's its own portion of infinity, but then inside of it, it's its own infinity, because infinity implies never ending. So as soon as you take a portion of infinity out of infinity, that portion is no longer limited, it's just another infinity. But instead of it being another infinity, that infinity has to be added on to the initial infinity. So that ends up making it just part of infinity. So from one perspective, it's a chunk of infinity that's also infinite, like a Mandelbrot set, like where you can infinitely zoom into one portion of it or infinitely zoom out. So this is like the confusion of the perspective. But at the same time, there is a way to be able to integrate the understanding of duality and non-duality that can be beneficial or useful for a human being. Because when you are able to see from a non-dual perspective, then you can truly appreciate everybody and every other thing that you experience, because of the fact that you realize that in order to appreciate yourself, you have to appreciate that. And everybody wants to learn to appreciate themselves because they all care about themselves. But at the same time, people, when you start to see from a non-dual perspective, then you start to have true care and compassion for all the other people, because you realize that they are just as valid as you are in their being. So because they are you, but at the same time, they are you being somebody else. I see why people have difficulties trying to explain these things. Because on one level, I can just sit here and talk, and I'll post it up anyways, just because I think it's fun to have these conversations, and whoever wants to listen can. But honestly, this is not something that I feel like is very easily downloadable into somebody's consciousness, where you can just tell them what experiencing non-dualism and dualism at the same time is like, because most people have only seen from the perspective of dualism, and it's like trying to show somebody who's never seen colors what colors look like. Like, you can put on a set of those color glasses, but if they choose to take it off, then that kind of color blindness comes back. So anyways, the point being is that, like, if you see in color, quote unquote, with that metaphor, that means that you can see through the eyes, recognizing that everything is one, but at the same time to see that all of the separate forms are also individualized portions of that one. So the trick of non-dualism is, or to integrate dualism and non-dualism, is to realize that they're both full truths and very possible in their own selves, but the ultimate truth is that it's all one, and you can experience that truth. But in order to experience other or separateness, you have to see through the eyes of dualism, because otherwise everything would be known to everybody all the time, and there would be no experience at that point, because nobody would be able to contrast or compare anything, and everything would just be all just jumbled into one experience, and nothing would really make any sense, or it would all make so much sense that nothing would be like there would be no point to experiencing anything. So really, like, the only reason that we see through dualism in the first place is just so that we can experience an experience of something, and then to just go throughout that experience and to gather from whatever we can that experience that we have of the separateness, and then to bring it back into that one so that we can integrate it into the full understanding of the one. I'll try to go into this a little bit more in a little bit, but this is seeming a little difficult to explain right now. So I'll try again later, but God bless you. Thank you.